In a world of polished glass and silent ascending elevators, Anya Valerius lived a life of calculated precision. Her office, occupying the entire top floor of the Valerius Industries Tower, was less a room and more a kingdom of minimalist austerity. From her throne-like chair, she commanded a global tech empire with the same detached, icy control she applied to her own emotions. Her world was binary: assets and liabilities, successes and failures. There was no room for anything very obvious. Her hands, always perfectly manicured, had never known the feel of grit or oil. They signed contracts that shifted markets and dismissed executives who failed to meet her impossible standards. She was powerful, envied, and profoundly alone. 70 floors below and a world away, Leo Vance's hands were a roadmap of his life, etched with grease and scored with the memory of 1,000 stubborn bolts. His domain was a small, cluttered garage, smelling of engine oil and hot metal. Here, success wasn't measured in stock prices, but in the purr of a finely tuned engine and the grateful smile of a customer. His most valuable asset wasn't a portfolio, but his 7-year-old daughter, Maya, whose crayon drawings of smiling suns and lopsided hearts were taped lovingly over the peeling paint of the garage office. He was a widower, a mechanic, a man who had chosen a small, authentic life over a larger, emptier one. His world was humble, rich, and filled with a quiet integrity. The collision of these two worlds began with a sound, or rather, the lack of one. Anya's custom-built hypercar, the Valkyrie, a one-of-a-kind marvel of engineering and a monument to her own success, died. It didn't sputter or cough. It simply ceased, its dashboard going dark with a final, insulting silence, right in front of the main entrance to her tower. A crowd of journalists there for a press conference swarmed, their cameras flashing like predatory eyes. Anya's face, usually a mask of placid control, tightened into a mask of fury. Her own elite engineering team, summoned Bowen, huddled over the open engine bay, their faces pale with confusion and fear. They were the best minds money could buy, and they were utterly useless. "This is an embarrassment." Anya's voice was a low, dangerous hiss, cutting through the murmurs of the crowd. "$1 million paperweight. Can anyone here do their job? Or do I need to find someone on the street who can?" The challenge, flung out resistancia of rage and humiliation, hung in the air. From his garage doorway down the block, Leo had seen the whole spectacle. He knew that car. He knew its heart, its soul, its every secret. "Daddy, the shiny car is sad," Maya said, tugging on his sleeve. "You can make it happy." Leo looked at his daughter's trusting face, then at the scene of corporate chaos. He wiped his hands on a rag, a slow, deliberate motion. He felt a pull, a reluctant sense of duty to the machine itself, a creation he knew was being violated by incompetent hands. With a sigh that carried the weight of a past he kept buried, he began to walk toward the silent, gleaming beast. He stepped through the ring of baffled engineers, his simple work boots beel on the pristine pavement. Anya's gaze fell on him, dripping with disdain. "And who are you?" she snapped. "The janitor? Lost?" Leo didn't flinch. He simply looked at the engine, his eyes taking in the details. "The harmonic balancer is misaligned," he said, his voice calm and steady. "It's causing a cascade failure in the plasma ignition system. You were about 3 seconds from a catastrophic engine seizure." The lead engineer scoffed. "That's impossible. This is a closed system. It can't be." Leo ignored him, pointing. "You can see the microfractures on the mounting bracket if you look. Your team was so busy running diagnostics, they forgot to just listen." Anya was taken aback, her anger momentarily short-circuited by his quiet confidence. She looked from her fumbling 6-figure team to this grease-stained stranger. Against every instinct, she gave a curt nod. "Prove it." Leo didn't ask for diagnostic tablets or sophisticated tools. He simply borrowed a wrench and a pry bar. The movements of his hands were fluid and economical, a dance of practiced expertise. He didn't force anything. He coaxed, his touch firm but understanding, as if communicating with the machine in a language only they shared. The crowd utpadet, a silent theater of disbelief, the engineer's protein with a mixture of horror and fascination. Anya stood immobile, her arms crossed, her mind struggling to process the scene. This man, this mechanic, was working on a $20 million prototype with the casual familiarity of someone changing a tire. He adjusted something minuscule, tightened a series of bolts in a sequence that seemed arcane sing ye, and then tapped a specific point on the engine block crescimento. He stepped back, wiping his hands on his pants. "Try it now," he said, his gaze meeting hers. There was no arrogance in his eyes, only a simple statement of fact. Skeptical, but with no other options, Anya slid into the driver's seat. She inserted the key. With a turn, the Valkyrie didn't just start. It exploded to life with a deep, throaty roar that vibrated through the concrete. It was a sound of pure, untamed power, healthier and more potent than she had ever heard it. The dashboard lit up, every system glowing a perfect, steady green. The crowd gasped, then broke into spontaneous applause. Anya sat in stunned silence, her manicured hands trembling, Chow Kei Li on the steering wheel. She got out of the car and walked toward him, her expression unreadable. "Who are you?" she asked again, but this time the disdain was gone, replaced by a raw, unnerving curiosity. "Leo Vance," he said simply. "I run the garage down the street." He turned and started to walk away. "Wait," she called out. "What do I owe you?" Leo paused. "Nothing. Just be kinder to your car. She's a good machine." That night, Anya couldn't sleep. The mechanic's calm, a stark contrast to her own barely contained panic, haunted her. The ease with which he had solved an impossible problem defied all logic. It wasn't just skill, it was intimacy. At 2 a.m., she called her head of security. "I want to know everything about a man named Leo Vance. He runs a garage on Elm Street. Everything." The report was on her desk by sunrise. It was thin, mostly detailing a quiet, unremarkable life for the past 5 years. But the last page contained a single, redacted attachment from a prior investigation. Anya used her highest clearance to unseal it. She read the words, and her world tilted on its axis. Leo Vance, former chief propulsion architect, Apex Dynamics, the legendary, almost mythical engineer who had vanished at the height of his career, the man who had designed the Valkyrie's revolutionary engine from the ground up. He wasn't just a mechanic, he was its creator. The revelation hit her not with triumph, but with a profound sense of humility. She had publicly mocked the very genius who had birthed her greatest symbol of status. The next morning, she didn't send an assistant. She drove the Valkyrie herself, its purring engine a constant reminder of her ignorance. She found Leo's garage, a place that seemed to belong to a different century. She stepped out of her supercar, her designer heels clicking awkwardly on the oil-stained concrete. She felt like an alien, a trespasser in a world of genuine substance. Leo was under a car, his legs the only part of him visible. "I know who you are," Anya said, her voice sounding strangely loud in the quiet garage. He slid out, wiping his hands. He didn't seem surprised. "Doesn't change the oil," he replied effados. She tried to regain control, to fall back on her default setting, transactions. "I'll double your previous salary, triple it. I want you back at Valerius. Name your price." Leo shook his head, a small, sad smile on his face. "I'm not for sale, Ms. Valerius. I already had that life. It cost me too much." Just then Maya ran in, holding a piece of paper. "Daddy, I made a new one." She stopped when she saw Anya, shyly hiding behind Leo's leg. "It's for the sad lady's car," she whispered. She held out a crayon drawing of the Valkyrie with a huge, smiling face. Anya knelt, her expensive suit be damned. She took the drawing, her fingers tracing the waxy lines. It was the first gift she'd received in years that wasn't intended to curry favor. A strange warmth spread through her chest. At that precise moment, her phone buzzed with Lurkon's urgent encrypted alert. A catastrophic data cascade was crippling her company's primary server farm. The timing, so soon after her car's failure, was too perfect. A cold dread washed over her. This wasn't random. It was an attack. She looked up at Leo, her corporate mask crumbling, revealing the fear beneath. "I need your help," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "Not as a boss to an employee. I think my company is being sabotaged, and I think you're the only one who can see it." Leo saw the genuine fear in her eyes, a vulnerability that transcended their different worlds. He looked at Maya, who was watching Anya with wide, compassionate eyes. He knew this was more than a technical problem. It was a rot that threatened to consume her, just as a similar rot had once threatened to consume him. "All right," he said. "I'll look." He was ushered into the sterile heart of Valerius Industries, a man of oil and iron in a world of silicon and light. Dressed in an ill-fitting suit Anya's assistant had procured, he felt like a fraud. But the moment he sat before the server data, the suit melted away. He wasn't a mechanic anymore. He was the architect, returned to his cathedral. Her top cybersecurity team explained their containment efforts, using jargon he hadn't heard in years. He listened patiently, then pointed to a single line of code. "There, it's a ghost protocol. It's not attacking. It's mapping your system, learning. This was just a test run." They dismissed him, padroins, until he bypassed Tamanda firewalls with a few dozen keystrokes and isolated the phantom code, revealing its elegant, malicious design. The room fell silent. They had been trying to fight a fire, while Leo had found the arsonist's blueprints. The trail led them to a defunct holding company, a digital dead end. They were stumped. That evening, as they worked late in Anya's office, she found herself confiding in him. She spoke of her relentless drive, the isolation of being at the top, and a bitter corporate rivalry with Marcus Thorne, a charismatic tech CEO who had also been her fiancé. "He proposed a merger, not a marriage," she said, her voice tinged with old pain. "When I refused, he became an enemy. He said he'd see my empire crumble." As she spoke, Leo's expression hardened. He recognized the digital signature of the attack, the specific brand of patient, elegant destruction. It was a style he'd encountered once before, in a corporate espionage case that had ruined his mentor and convinced him to leave the industry. Wu ran. "It's him," Leo said quietly. "Marcus, this is his work." The puzzle pieces clicked into place. The car, the server attack, they were probes, designed to test her defenses and create the perception of instability. At that moment, a news alert flashed on the screen. Thorne Industries was announcing a hostile takeover bid for Valerius Industries, citing critical leadership and infrastructure failures. Marcus wasn't just trying to hurt her, he was trying to devour her. The takeover bid was a declaration of war. Marcus was using the very chaos he'd created as his weapon, painting Anya as incompetent. The board was wavering. Panic began to ripple through the company. But for the first time, Anya wasn't alone. She and Leo became a two-person army against Kai looming threat. They worked around the clock, fueled by coffee and a shared sense of purpose. He brought his sleeping bag to her office, and Maya would visit after school, doing her homework at a massive mahogany desk, her quiet presence a grounding force amidst the digital warfare. Anya found herself watching the father and daughter, their easy affection a language she barely understood but deeply craved. Leo, in turn, saw past the Ice Queen facade to the brilliant, embattled woman beneath. He wasn't just fixing her company, he was helping her reclaim it. Using his encyclopedic knowledge of system architecture, Leo didn't just defend, he anticipated. "He's not after your money," Leo explained, pointing to a schematic on a smartboard. "He's after your Project Chimera data, the AI integration patent. It's the one thing his company can't replicate. He'll try to steal it during the emergency shareholders meeting. It's the only time the system's core protocols will be accessible." Instead of just building a wall, Leo proposed they open a door. They would create a honeypot, a fake data vault so alluring, so perfectly disguised as the real thing, that Marcus's attack algorithm wouldn't be able to resist. It was a high-risk gamble. If they failed, they would be handing Marcus the keys to the kingdom. The night before the meeting, the tension was a physical presence in the office. Maya had fallen asleep on a sofa, a half-finished drawing of a superhero who looked suspiciously like Leo, clutched in her hand. Anya gently draped her own expensive jacket over the sleeping child. She looked at Leo, his face illuminated by the glow of the monitors. "Why did you leave?" she asked softly. "You were the best." Leo was silent for a long moment. "We designed a system, an automated piloting AI for commercial transport," he began, his voice low. "I found a flaw, a 1 in a billion chance it could miscalculate in a specific weather pattern. My boss, my mentor, told me to sign off anyway. The launch date was too important. I refused. They pushed the launch and a cargo transport went down. No one was hurt, but they buried the report and blamed a pilot who wasn't even there. I leaked the real data to expose them. I lost my career, my reputation, everything, but I kept my integrity. That's what I'm trying to teach her," he said, nodding toward Maya. "That's all that matters." Anya finally understood. He hadn't run from failure. He had stood for something. In that moment, her admiration for him crystallized into something deeper. She placed her hand over his on the keyboard. "Tomorrow," she said, "we show them what real integrity looks like." The shareholders' meeting was a gladiatorial arena. Marcus Thorne sat in the front row, a wolf in a tailored suit, his expression a perfect blend of feigned concern and predatory confidence. Anya began her presentation, her voice steady despite the entire future of her company, hanging in the balance. As she reached the section on the corporate security, a flicker appeared on the main screen behind her. A collective gasp went through the room. This was it. The attack. Marcus allowed himself a small, triumphant smile, but instead of the system crashing, a new window bloomed on the screen. It was a live schematic of the Valerius network. A crimson line, representing the breach, snaked its way through the firewalls. The room watched, mesmerized, as the attack bypassed decoy after decoy, heading straight for a vault labeled Project Chimera. In a small control room backstage, Leo's fingers flew across his keyboard. "He's in," he murmured, "hook, line, and sinker." On the main screen, the crimson line touched the vault. But instead of data flowing out, the vault turned into a trap. A new process, labeled truthprotocol.exe, launched. The crimson line, Marcus's attack vector, was instantly captured. Its origin point began to flash, tracing back through a web of shell corporations and offshore servers, resolving in real time onto a single, final node. A new window popped up, showing a live feed from a webcam. It was Marcus Thorne's office. The feed showed his own computer, with the attack software running, the commands originating from his own terminal. The final piece of the puzzle slammed into place. A digital signature appeared on screen, matching the IP address of the tablet Marcus was holding in his lap at that very moment. A wave of shock and outrage swept through the auditorium. Marcus's face went from smug triumph to ashen horror. He was exposed, utterly and irrevocably. Anya's voice cut through the chaos, cold and clear. "Security," she commanded. "Please escort Mr. Thorne out of my building." The aftermath was a whirlwind. The story of the corporate titan felled by a humble mechanic and a brilliant CEO became legend. The press lauded Anya's nerve and Leo's hidden genius. The board, awestruck, gave her their unconditional support. Valerius Industries' stock soared. In her office, with the city gleaming below, Anya looked at Leo, who was now awkwardly holding a glass of champagne. "The board has approved my proposal," she said. "I'm creating a new position, Chief Technology Officer. It's yours. A corner office. A salary that will make your head spin. Anything you want." Leo looked out the window, then back at her. He thought of the noise, the politics, the life he had escaped. "I appreciate the offer, Anya. More than you know." He set the champagne down. "But I can't. My place is in the garage, with Maya." Anya's face fell, but then Leo continued. "However," he said, a slow smile spreading across his face, "I would be willing to head up a new, independent R&D division, the Integrity Division. We focus on technology that helps people. No deadlines, no shareholders, just innovation. And I work from my garage. And you bring Maya pizza on Fridays." Anya's smile was the brightest he had ever seen it. "I can do that," she said, "but you're coming to the board meetings in a suit that fits." A week later, the three of them walked away from the Valerius Tower. Leo was in his work clothes, Anya in a simple dress, and Maya was skipping between them, holding both of their hands. They weren't a CEO, a mechanic, and a child. They were a team, a unit, a family forged in a crisis. They were heading for pizza, leaving the world of glass and steel behind for a world of warmth and laughter. Have you ever wondered if the greatest talents are hidden in the most unlikely places? This story reminds us that integrity is not a commodity to be bought or sold, but a force that can reshape the world. True value isn't found in a stock price, but in the strength of one's character and the love we share. It suggests that sometimes the most complex systems don't need a corporate overhaul, but a simple, honest touch.